guys. Hope everybody's doing good. We're gonna take a break from the Mexico history thing to cover a few recent events that have been happening. The first one I want to cover is in regards to the immigration deportations things that's going on. What I have to say is in regards to it, most of us saw it coming, knew that it was coming, right? A lot of people were probably in denial. A lot of people didn't really believe it was going to happen or whatever. Most of us um, knew it was coming. It was only a matter of time before the Americans got pissed of how everything was going on. Um, I don't want to put all the blame on one government or group or whatever. What I will say is that the whole immigration problem was a long time coming, and it's the fault of both governments that were and in the case of Mexico are still in power, right? Mexico has some of the strictest immigration laws on the books, way harsher than America's. Just so everybody's clear, for everybody saying, "Oh, America's immigration laws are too harsh" or whatever, Mexico's are harsher still. Okay, so when the caravans of Venezuelans and all these other people, the people that's even were even coming not from South America or whatever. There was a lot of Chinese people and Africans who were being, from the Caribbean probably, but that were being picked up. Mexico did nothing to stop them, right? Mexico did nothing, even though they had full power to stop the caravans coming up from the south. Mexico's southern border is a lot smaller than America's southern border, so it's a lot easier to control and a lot easier to not allow people in. Um, at any time, they could have put the military there to stop them. The the Mexican government that took power though is is very left leaning, right? It's very left, and it's left leaning for a different reason than the American government. Um, Usually Mexico's governments are right leaning, but very, as we know, they're very corrupt. And I believe what happened is that in an attempt to get past corruption and just the people in general being fed up with so much corruption, they attempted because this new government is it's called Morena. It's brand new. Like it barely sprung up. It's kind of like the Salvadorian government, right? The new Bukele dude who took control. I believe he's from a brand new branch of a new party that sprung up over there. Um, the Mexican one is also a brand new party that was just formed. I believe the people went for it, kind of tired of how things have been going. The new government leans left. However, the problem with the new government is that even though they lean left, they absorbed a lot of. It was a small government, so in order to fill all the vacant spots, they absorbed a lot of the old people from the other groups, right? From the PAN and the PRI and all those other ones, they absorbed some of their people, so nothing really changed too much. They lean left now, but a lot of the old corruption that was there has now seeped into them, and so nothing is really going to change, right? It would have been different if they would have came with all new people and just said, you know what, we don't want anybody. But unfortunately, a lot of the people who were in PAN and the PRI and the old government groups. They just jumped ship onto this one, and now they just infected this one as well. So we nothing is really gonna change, right? Unfortunately, that's just the reality of things. Um, However, it leans left, so it like relaxed its rules for immigration, and it let entire caravans of hundreds and sometimes thousands of immigrants through, just go through Mexico unchallenged. Um, I know a lot of people have complained. Now, for the people who are already here, you I suppose they have other reasons for not wanting for the whole voter IDs and all those things. However, I do want to say that when it comes to those types of things, it's mainly the politicians in the blue states that make a big deal about it, because in Mexico, everybody, in order to vote in Mexico, you have to have a voter ID. I believe even to get a job in Mexico, you have to prove that you're a citizen or that you have permission to work in Mexico. So the people who come from Mexico don't have any place to complain about, hey, we need an ID to vote, right? I believe, like I said, it's usually just politicians who complain about it, because you don't really see Mexican people on the news talking about, hey, I shouldn't need a voter ID to vote. And in case you notice that they were real quiet about it, that is the reason that in Mexico you absolutely need a voter ID to vote. I believe it's called an electoral, but I could be wrong. But I believe that's what it's called. It's an ID that you need in Mexico for pretty much anything. You want to get a job, you have to have that. You want to vote, you need to have documentation. So that basically pretty much covers that, right? Um, so to a lot of people, I don't know, a lot of people say that voter IDs are racist or whatever. To Mexico and Mexicans, it's not racist. It's just, to us, it's just common sense, I guess. I don't know. Other people, however, will see it different. Um, so there's the flaw. What went wrong with Mexico, right? They let all these people through unchecked, without ever asking themselves, hey, are we sure the Americans aren't going to get pissed off that we just keep sending all these people through, right? Most of them weren't even Mexican. Most of them were coming from other places, a huge amount of them at least. Um, and it was just, we could say, weird situation that got set up where both governments were left leaning, right? The Biden administration also was very, very left leaning, and probably a little bit more left than usual, right? Instead of being center left, they seem to be kind of far left people, and they just also opened up the borders and just let everybody through without, either without asking themselves, are the public gonna get pissed off that we're just sending everybody in and taking up hotels and using taxpayer money to pay for them, right? Or either that, or just not caring what anybody was gonna think. But so yeah, so most of us, with some decent common sense, already knew that this was gonna happen. It was just a matter of time before the deportation started, before a new government basically came in and at the behest of the people, basically said, you know what, enough is enough. You had, things all over the news. You had migrants all over New York. You had them taking over apartment complexes. And what I will say is that it wasn't just here in America that it seemed to have a lot to do with the Venezuelans. I've never met one personally, so I don't know how they are, but the same way they were behaving here is the exact same way that they behave in Mexico. Okay, they just want to take up, parking lots or whatever, or migrant shelters. They don't. I can't honestly say they don't want to go out and get jobs, because they're not really allowed to work. Like I said, in Mexico, in order to get a job, you need to prove that you have permission to be there. They don't have it, obviously. But a lot of them, I think, supposedly were given a chance to get jobs, and they didn't want them. Uh, they basically went out and tried to start, crime groups. The gang came in, the Tren de Aragua or whatever it's called, and they're at war with the Sinaloa guys, and the like they basically picked a fight with just about everybody down there, right? And so don't don't feel too badly about what's happening right now, right? Because it is it is everybody's fault. Is what I tell people, whether however they see it. Is, what, I had some cousins that I was talking to not too long ago, and this one dude that I haven't seen in forever, but he's not my cousin, but he came up and he was mad, and we happened to be talking about immigration, and he was pissed, and he was like, oh, this and that, and that they're gonna deport everybody, and I told him during this time it was just basically against the Venezuelans. Like, nobody had said anything yet against the Mexicans, and I told him, I was like, what are you mad for? And he's like, oh, well, they keep talking all this stuff. I was like, about the Venezuelans. I was like, you care about those dudes? How many do you know or what? And the dude stayed real quiet. He was like, no, well, I don't. I was like, you care about those people? And he's like, well, no. I was like, well, then what are you mad about? And honestly, he had nothing more to say. He just stayed quiet, right? So obviously he didn't feel that strongly about it. He just said he was just talking out of his ass, right? But that's basically what I would tell anybody, is anybody who is mad about the recent events. I would say, well, hey, it's never been this bad before, right? So you can't blame the Americans for being mad about it. Okay, before, what happened is, in the other governments, Mexico had Mexico would actually have troops down at their southern border, and they wouldn't let just anybody through. They would definitely not let any caravans in. They would let a few people in, people who managed to sneak around, right? Like, get on a train and get smuggled across. There is a train that crosses from South America into Mexico. I believe it's called La Bestia, right? It's called the Beast. It's just some old train that passes through. But, sometimes the immigrants, they hide in there, and then they manage to get up into Mexico. And so that immigration has always been tolerated, right? Um, those people who managed to come across from Mexico, and the very few that managed to make it up from South America, have always managed to get in. However, it's always been tolerated because it was in such low numbers that you can say, hey, we need these guys. It is unfortunately how the news says it. It is indentured servitude. Okay, the way it works is basically, hey, you come work for me. It's I know it because it's how my dad used to work. Right? It's we come from Eastern Washington and Yakima, and basically that place doesn't pay very well. So the way that it was growing up was, hey, come work for me. I'm gonna pay you minimum wage, right? In these days, minimum wage was about, I believe, $7.50 an hour, something like that. Um, we're gonna pay you minimum wage, but we're gonna give you a place to live, right? And so my entire childhood, I lived in a house that we did not pay rent for. However, we my dad, my mom, everybody got paid minimum wage who was working there. And it's basically indentured servitude, which is very different from, things that I see now, where now I see people who work at decent jobs, who, they're there for like a year, and they get like $5 raises at the end of the year if they do good or whatever. And like, the first time I saw it, it was amazing to me, because down in Yakima when I was a child, they would get a raise of 1/4 every year, right? And I believe they had to change it now, obviously, because the minimum wage in Washington State went up to $15. So now everybody gets paid $15, but it's still just about a quarter a year, right? They don't have to. There's no limit on how much of a raise they can give you, so it's a quarter a year. And so it's basically indentured servitude, right? However, when you don't really have too much of a choice, or if that's the best kind of job you can get, then that's, it is what it is. Um, but so it is, like I was saying, everybody's fault in this. It is like the saying goes. There's a saying in Spanish that says, "Ahora el muerto lo vamos a cargar entre todos." Basically, another way of saying this is everybody's fault, and so the burden is gonna fall on all of us. Everybody's gonna hurt now because of the actions of the past two governments, and there's just nothing to be done about it. Right? We people can complain all they want. I know a lot of people are gonna be unhappy about it. Um, some people, especially relatives of people who are gonna get deported, are going to be upset. However, it is gonna happen, and there's just nothing to be done about it. People can scream and cry all they want. It's there's nothing to be done, right? And unfortunately, I don't like to say much, but it is upsetting, right? Like I said, I was born in Mexico, but I grew up here. I grew up in Yakima, Washington. Um, it is very upsetting to see the people on the news burning the American flag and just disrespecting it the way they have. I have a sister who did 2 tours in Iraq, and so my family has a great respect for this country, and it is very upsetting and very embarrassing to see how a lot of these people, a lot of my people are behaving towards this country that you could say, I want to say, that gave us so much, but I feel like America and Mexico have this weird relationship where, we're in one of those toxic relationships, right? Where we kind of we do good to each other, but at the same time we kind of take shots at each other, and so it's just one of those relationships, right? Um, Mexico unfortunately sends a lot of drugs up here. America in return, sends money and drugs back, or money and guns back, I should say, and so both of them play a part in the weird relationship that we have. But it still is very upsetting sometimes to see. I had hoped to never see Mexicans burning the American flag, right? You would see everybody else burning them. You would see everybody else rioting and looting, and I would always be able to say, at least we've never done that before, right? And unfortunately, I can't say that anymore. Um, I guess that's too bad. Um, Another thing that I wanted to touch on was a few days ago. For those who may or may not know, Mexico extradited a whole shitload of people into America. Now, what you have to realize is that Mexico doesn't do these things for free. It has a really bad habit of, whenever the Mexican government feels like they're in trouble or they're about to be in trouble, they tend to extradite people into America that America has been wanting for a while. Mexico has the habit of extraditing them whenever they feel like they're kind of backed into a corner. Um, so, however your feelings are for towards Trump, like him or dislike him, the guy knows how to get things done, right? The guy with his threat of the tariffs has basically boxed Mexico into a corner where Mexico is pretty much willing to do anything to basically try and avoid it. Are they going to avoid it? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see, right? But it took something. It would take something very extreme for Mexico to be okay with this, because normally, if you know about Mexican extraditions, they usually come with the stipulation that the people that they have extradited cannot be put to death, and they cannot, technically I believe it was also that they couldn't receive life sentences. Up recently, Chapo Guzman and Alfredo Beltran Leiva have been given life sentences, so I believe that's when the strings started to loosen up a little bit. They extradited Caro Quintero, which is somebody that America has wanted for a very, very long time. Right? They extradited the Zeta 40, as well as Zeta 42, which are two brothers that led a very, very bloody faction of the Zetas. Um, they extradited El Viceroy. He's the brother of Amado Carrillo Fuentes, El Señor de los Cielos, the guy that basically made the Juarez cartel as big as it is. He, as everybody knows, most likely he died during a plastic surgery that he was trying to change his face. He ended up not being able to take it or whatever, or an overdose or something, but he died. His younger brother Vicente took over. They called him El Viceroy. He was basically in charge during the whole time when Chapo tried to invade Juarez, and basically they turned Ciudad Juarez into the most dangerous city in the world. Um, they also extradited a guy that they call Tony Montana, right? His name is Antonio Cervantes. He is the brother of Mencho, right? So that basically means, I believe, the brother of Mencho and Mencho's son, El Menchito, are now here in America. I'm not too sure if his, I know his wife was also arrested, and I believe maybe a daughter. I'm not sure if they got extradited or not, though. Um, Also, I believe yesterday or the day before, another one of Mencho's brothers was arrested in Mexico. So they're really, they're hitting his family pretty hard. They can't seem to get him yet, but they are basically his whole family around him. They're taking chunks out of it, right? So he's almost completely alone now. We'll just have to see how it ends up going with him. Um, Also, El Güerito, right? He's one of the dudes from the Chapo Guzman faction of his sons. He was barely arrested. Normally, they get arrested and then they fight extradition for a few years until they lose their appeals and stuff. This dude was arrested like a week ago, so they didn't even give him a chance to fight extradition. Like, they're just like, you know what, get him, he's out of here. Let's put a nice little bow on it and give it as a gift to the Americans and see if see if it gives us a little bit of grace. Because as far as I have it understood, Mexico is really, really loosened. They have to be extremely nervous about these tariffs, or the threat of invasion through the putting all those guys on the terrorist list, whatever it is, because Mexico um, is okay, I suppose, with America giving everybody life. America has already said they're giving everybody who was extradited, the 30, I believe it's about 34 guys, they're gonna expect for all of them to be sentenced to life, and a few of them, America's gonna actually attempt to put them to death. So, right, I believe Caro Quintero, El Viceroy, and a few other ones are actually going to, America's gonna move to put them to death, right? And I don't know necessarily how I personally feel about it, um, right, about the whole death thing. It's just because it is different for it to happen here. But I can honestly say I speak for everybody in everybody in the Hispanic community when I say um, that it's a good thing that these guys are gone, and that they're gonna, and I hope, like I said, I'm not too crazy about being put to death, but I do hope that they all end up in a cell in Florence Admax, all alone, right next to Chapo Guzman, crying about, how it hurts, and how it's torture, all the solitary, how it hurts so much, and how it's so much torture, right? Because these are people who have caused a lot of pain, not just in America, also in Mexico. They basically have will go down in history in Mexico in a bloody rampage that they all went through. Just butchering hundreds, if not thousands, of innocent people. Right, the innocent people who were caught in the crossfire between the groups, sending messages to each other, or whatever. They did kill a lot of innocent people, and um, I hope they get exactly what's coming to them. And so yeah, so we're gonna leave this video here. Um, on the next one, we'll get back into the things that I was talking about before with the Familia Michoacana and stuff. I just wanted to with a lot of things happening, I wanted to take a quick break and cover some of the more recent things that are going on, just because they're happening, and I feel like if I wait too long, when I finally talk about it, it's everything's gonna have happened already. So yeah, remember, comment, like, subscribe if you have any questions. If you want to know anything else, just go ahead and leave a comment on there. And yeah, hope everybody has a good day.
Puros corridos tumbados de goma.